All right, let's jump right in. If you're a professional in the commercial real estate space, you know the Dallas-Fort Worth multifamily market has been a hot topic, to say the least. Today, we're going to cut through all that noise. We'll give you a hard, data-driven look at the market's current rebalancing, the real signs of recovery, and what looks to be a clearer path to resurgence.
And just so you know, this explainer is made possible by our friends at Hall Jacobs, a capital markets firm that's been placing debt and equity since 2006. So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll tackle the oversupply hangover. Then, how investors are navigating the current trough. We'll get into the critical shifts in the construction pipeline, look at the Rebalancing Act, and finally, lay out a data-driven roadmap to the market's resurgence.
Which, brings us to the big question on everyone's mind. Is the DFW multifamily market a falling knife that you don't want to get anywhere near? Or is it a coiled spring just building up tension for a massive rebound? Let's dig in and find out.
Okay, first things first, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the oversupply. You really can't grasp the opportunity here until you understand the main challenge the market's wrestling with right now. And this number, wow, it says it all. While other markets nationally are starting to feel a bit of a thaw, Dallas transaction volume just cratered, down a staggering 40% year over year. That makes DFW a real outlier, and it's almost entirely because of the fire hose of new units hitting the market. And all that new supply, it pushed the Metroplex vacancy rate to about 12%. Now, for operators on the ground, that kind of vacancy creates some serious headwinds. It puts the brakes on rent growth and really complicates your traditional value-add strategies. But, tough markets force people to get smart. So let's look at how the savvy investors aren't just sitting on their hands. They're actively changing their playbooks to get through this trough. This is so interesting. The old playbook, pushing aggressive rent hikes and using traditional financing, it's just on pause. The new playbook is all about being strategic. Think concessions, like 6 to 8 weeks of free rent, just to get heads in beds. And on the capital side, creative deal structures are absolutely essential to make the math work and bridge those financing gaps. Now, this brings us to what I think is the engine of the entire recovery, the huge shift we're seeing in the construction pipeline. This is exactly where the story pivots from being about the challenge to being about the opportunity. Let me just walk you through this timeline. From 2014 to 24, it was a massive boom. We're talking over 200,000 new units hitting the market. Right now, here in the second quarter of 2025, we're finally seeing completions start to fall off from that peak. And looking forward, new starts have hit a 10-year low. The supply spigot is, for all intents and purposes, being turned off. But look at this. This is a fantastic leading indicator. Even with starts way down, the number of new multifamily permits in Dallas, Houston, and Orlando has been quietly creeping up since late last year. This shows that developers are already getting their ducks in a row, positioning themselves for the next cycle. And the smarts aren't just in the planning, it's in what's actually being built. Dallas is leading the entire state in downtown apartment construction. And a huge piece of that puzzle is adaptive reuse, taking these old, outdated office buildings and brilliantly converting them into the kind of modern apartments people actually want to live in. So with supply finally slowing down, we gotta look at the other side of the ledger, demand. And this, my friends, is DFW's superpower. Let's talk about why demand isn't just stable, it is incredibly resilient. It really boils down to 3 fundamental pillars that every sophisticated investor already knows about this market. 1, powerful, consistent job growth. 2, fantastic demographics with people constantly moving in. And 3, homeownership costs that are just persistently high, which keeps a very deep, qualified pool of people in the rental market. These are the shock absorbers for DFW. Now, here's a stat that might make you sit up and take notice. Even with transaction volume in the gutter, cap rates for both core and value-add assets actually compressed in the second quarter of this year. What does that tell you? It tells you that institutional money is already seeing the long-term value and their underwriting is getting more aggressive. So let's put all the pieces together. Let's draw a clear, data-driven map that shows the path from where we are today in this rebalancing act, all the way to a full-blown resurgence. This table really lays it all out. For the rest of 2025, the forecast shows vacancy rates basically holding steady while all that new supply gets absorbed. But by 2026, we expect to see them tighten back down toward 10%. Rent growth is stabilizing right now, on a path to a healthy 3% plus, and critically, deal flow should start picking up in the second half of this year and really get moving in 2026.
And the feeling on the street? It totally matches the data. Confidence is coming back. The smart money isn't just chasing any deal. They're getting very specific, favoring core plus and value-add strategies that are perfectly positioned for what's coming next.
So, we'll leave you with this final thought. We've established the supply engine is slowing down. We know the demand engine is still firing on all cylinders. All the data points towards stabilization and recovery. So the question for you to consider is, where exactly in the DFW Metroplex will those first real value opportunities begin to surface? We really hope this explainer gave you some valuable clarity on the DFW market. And once again, this overview was made possible by Hall Jacobs, a capital markets firm placing senior and mezzanine debt, preferred, participating preferred, LP, co-GP, and JV equity since 2006.